Hey guys, this is a minimalistic recipe app that I wrote. And in this app, I use Angular and Spring Boot as front and back end. As you can see here, I use 1/3 of TypeScript and also a little less than 1/3 of Java. And the rest are just HTML, JavaScript, and CSS. And here's a screenshot of this app. So the motivation of creating this app is that, I am a college student and I cook for myself on weekends when my girlfriend also come to visit me. So there are lots of times that, after we wake up, we spend, like an hour to discuss what to eat for breakfast and what to eat for lunch. And the stuff are just there in the refrigerator, but it took us so long to figure out what to eat. And so I just want to create this little app to help us write down the recipes that we love, and we can just easily search for the recipes by titles or by the ingredients we have. And then after locating the recipe we love, we can, just follow the steps and, have a good meal. So yeah, that's it. And let's now try to run this app. And this app is a little complicated. There's the backend and frontend part, and you have to run both of them. So let's first of all run the server, and then let's then um, run the front end, and then we're ready to go. So yeah, you can see that it's a long paragraph, but basically here it says that you need to first of all run this program to run the server, and the code so this is the directory I've been working with, and you can see there's a lot of stuff, and the thing I'm looking for is here in this server folder. Let me just try to collapse a few things. Yeah, and so the backend program is in this server folder. It's actually a nested project. This is like this is the backend folder, and all of the rest stuff are the frontend stuff. But there's a reason that I put them nested, and you will see. So the thing I'm looking for is in server source man java com long e recipe, and there you go. This is the stuff. Oh, let me actually run it and choose to run it with. Okay, there you go. This is my code editor, and yeah, I'm just waited for a little while. All right, there we go. And now let's just run it. Run and continue anyway. Hope it's responding. Oh yeah, speeding up the project. Cool. So now I see that our application started in 10 seconds. And so we've done with the server side. And let's see how to run the front end. So you just want to go to this main folder. Let me collapse this server side. And I said that except for this server, all of the stuff, this is like the parent folder. And this is where, all of my front-end files reside. So I'll just run the front-end from here. And now it says that you need to run npm install. But because I have all of the stuff here, I've been working with this folder. So I just really need to run this thing. Yeah, and we're good to go. So I have already opened my front-end files here, and but let me just open another terminal. There you go. Here's the terminal, and so this directory is on the desktop, and it's called recipe. Oops, yeah, a typo. And here I am, and I will just run this. Give me a little more time. And there you go. It's generating the bundle. And yeah, our Angular front end is sort of running. It says it's running on localhost port 40,200. So go there just by click on this. And yeah, we got it. Here's our recipe. So I have created the recipe when I tested the app, but let me just delete them right now. So here is where you will see if you have nothing in your database for the first time you run it. It's just a blank page, and you can see that's really minimalistic. And the two only buttons you can click on, or the two only functions we have is add recipe and search recipe. But now we don't have any recipe, so we have to add one. And let me just recover the ones I just deleted by filling into the information again, and I'll show you from the start how should I use this app. So now click on this add recipe, and you see that there are a few information it's asking for. So including the recipe name, of course, and an estimation of how long it takes to cook, and the author if you want to give credit to, and the ingredient needed to cook this recipe, and those are the steps that I can follow to cook it, and lastly a cover image for this recipe. So I don't know if you remember, but the two recipes I had are a steak recipe and a Chinese hot pot recipe. So now let me just firstly create that steak. And actually I have all of the stuff copied in a sticker. I will just in a minute copy them here, paste them here. So I'll just give credit to myself. And the ingredients contains steak, of course. What else? We need olive oil, actually light olive oil, because it has a higher smoke point. We need some seasoning like salt and pepper. And something else I need is butter, if I recall, rosemary or any herb, and garlic, which I personally love. And there's a vegetable, whether it's bean or potato or whatever you love. And then yeah, I said that I have the steps prepared, and I'll just paste it here. So, but I will read it to you. So first of all, you want to rub the salt and pepper onto the steak, and you want to wait for some time to let the steak absorb the flavor. And then you want to add oil to the pan and begin to heat. You want the pan to be really hot, because well, that's just how to cook the steak. And I want to put the steak into the pan and wait for 3 minutes. Or people like cooks argue about this, but that's the way I cook about this. And so the way I do it is wait 3 minutes to build the crust. And then I'll just turn the steak around and add butter, rosemary, and garlic. And butter actually has lowered like a smoke point than other source of oil. But when you add all of this stuff, the heat will be absorbed and the temperature will just go down. And so that after the butter melts, you want to cook for another 5 minutes and just use a spoon to spoon the butter onto the steak to let the steak absorb the butter. And lastly, you want the steak to rest. This is important, as I saw in many like cooking steak videos. And you can use this time to cook the vegetable, and that's it. So now I'm gonna choose a cover image for it, and it's also prepared. So for me, it's on just in this folder, and yeah, this is a steak that I cooked, and there you go. I'll just add it, and you see there's our recipe. There's our first steak recipe. So yeah, basically this is how our app works. And our app adds the second hot pot real quick. So name hot pot. Time usually takes me 1 hour to eat by myself, and if I'm with my girlfriend, it take us like 1.90 minutes, and also we can watch some TV drama during eating. Also also myself again, and let me paste some stuff over here. I don't know, have you tried hot pot before? But it's good. Oops, this is the wrong step. So let me just tap here. So to eat a hot pot, basically want to boil the hot pot soup firstly, and then you can just get what you like. So just put what you like into the pot, and when they are done, you can use a spotted spoon. I don't know if you have that. To use spot spoon to scoop the food when they are done. So just takes longer to cook meat than cook vegetables. Yeah, but it's when they're done, it. And lastly, just dip the food into traditional Chinese sesame sauce, which adds another flavor. And that's it. Enjoy. So here I'm gonna just choose another image for it, which I already also prepared. And there you go. Yeah, that's pretty much it. And you can delete the recipes if you don't like it anymore, or like you can change some parts of the recipe. So seeing that this is an image of I eating hot pot at home, and but if I want to replace it, this is another photo. I eat hot pot in a restaurant. If I just think this is a more lovely photo, I want to replace the old one, I can just add something. And I think that if I think it's not actually 1 minute, but it's actually 6 minutes. So there's an error. So I need to modify that. And you can see the things change the photo, and the minute they're replaced by the new ones. And when I introduced the ad, I said that the motivation of it is we can search for some recipes by our food in the refrigerators. So it's actually a practical tool that I want to have for myself. So saying that now when I wake up, I only have a steak, in my refrigerator. I can just type in steak, and this is the only recipe I get because of the little number of the recipes I now have. But seeing that now, I have some vegetable, whether it's bean or some other potatoes and stuff in my refrigerator, if I type in vegetable, you'll see that both of them are still here, because indeed there's vegetable here and vegetable here. And if there's a third recipe with no vegetable on it, then it will be filtered out, and it will also only see these two recipes because they are the ones that contains the thing you are looking for. And it can also, I can search by title, but now you can't see because the steak is also in its ingredient, and so does hot pot. But you might have noticed that whenever I click on the card, it'll show you, the steps to follow. And you might notice that when I entered the steps, it asked me to separate the steps by comma. And then when I just enter it and save it, wait, wrong image. Okay, there we go. So, and when I show it into this board, I parse it by the commas, so that you can just follow it steps by steps, and it's just more clear, easier to follow. And yeah, that's pretty much it. It's a really, lovely and practical app, small app. And now let's dig into the code and just take a look at that. So firstly, I think I'll start from the front end, okay? And really, this is the front end app. Let me open the folder from here. And yeah, there we go. So this is my first time using Angular, and I learned a bunch of stuff. And one common practice in writing Angular, or like TypeScript, is the common language used for Angular. So when you're writing in TypeScript or Angular, one common practice is creating an interface, or like a class. It's yeah, just people do it, and there are of course reason, but yeah, but you need to create class or interface. And here's my recipe interface and its definition. And with this class, I can just create numerous objects of recipes, like the two I just created. So it's like a template. And after you have the class, this is, let me just talk about the HTML first. So this part is the navigation bar, as you can see from the element here. And there's nothing really going on here. I downloaded from some Bootstrap template. And then this is the container. And the container is just I use a for loop to fetch all of the recipes and just show them. And so for each recipe, this is the recipe name printed in a H3 title. And this is, and then in the card body, I also append the row class to it, which means that inside this row I can assign columns. I can assign spaces to the elements by giving them this number, like column hyphen how many space, and this 7 and 5 makes them aligned left to right, and the image takes more space than the information here. So anyway, this is the image, and on the right of the image is the time to cook it, and the ingredients you need, and the author, and yeah, and the steps are hidden from here because this is like an overview of the recipe, but you can click on it to view the whole steps that like as I showed before. And below them, below these lines of code are the modules that, modules is like these sort of things that, can pop up. And I defined several modules, including, creating a new recipe module and edit, which is this one. And what else? This is delete and view. This is for viewing the steps. And that's all. That's pretty much it. And so, just more specifically, the modules, just not a lot of things. It's just like the main part of it is the form that to fill in the information to cook, to create the recipe. And you might notice that this edit form, it's really the same in structure as this add recipe form, except that all of this information are already filled in because you're trying to edit something, right? And they are just, in code. I just need to give them the information of this ng model property, and that's pretty much it. And so this is the app.component.html file. And the next thing important, or like the next thing that implement all of these functions is this TypeScript file. And so this ngit on init just corresponds to the main page, just fetch all of, well, it calls this get recipe function and basically just fetch all of the recipes. And this, you can see that there's an injection of this recipe service object, and the recipe service is right here. It's based on this recipe class. And yeah, so this recipe service is, let's say, this connected to, it's just one layer from the back end, and I'll talk about them later. But basically, this recipe service is mapping, these functions that you can call from the front end to the request, and where, you pass into the back end road. So again, the logic is this. This is like the template you see. This is HTML, and then this is the logic of the app. And inside these functions, it will use the functions of the recipe service, which is defined here, which is just one layer from the back end. And all of these stuff are on the top of this recipe interface. So you can see that in HTML, there's this recipe, and in this TypeScript, of course, there are 4 recipe objects that I use, and so does this service file that I have to declare the object type, which is here in array of recipe. And let me just talk more about this app, this TypeScript here. So there's nothing really special. Like you can see that, for example, this add recipe it's just standard logic that you pass it into this service, and then when you get back something successfully, what do you want to do? I want to reset the add form, and I click on this model, and if there's an error, I just print out the error. And what I want to show, it's okay. And here I just say, I said that this search bar search not only based on the ingredient of the recipe, but also based on this name of the recipe. Yeah, it's just to I just want to give back more search result. And something special is this unopened model. So what does it do, and who calls it? So let me go back to this HTML, and um, you can see that. So whenever there's a model being called, here is the button that calls the model. So whenever I press a button, like whatever this edit or this delete button, you can see that. So this is the edit button. This is the delete button, and this is the wheel button. Basically, this wheel button, well, it's the whole card. You click on the whole card is a button. So wherever you click on, it will shows you this model. But what I want to say here is that, so these three buttons all point to this model function, and in this function, well, the first parameter is all the same, the recipe, like the current recipe, but the second parameter is a string, and it says, what is the parent of this button? What is the target, or like what is the model name of this button? So this is the wheel. This is the wheel button. Like I can say this is the wheel button. This is edit button. This is the delete button, and they all will trigger this open module function. And back to the function, when it is triggered, so it will set up a button, and it will give this button is hidden, so you can't actually see it. It's not there, but this button will be given data toggle attribute, and it is model. And also based on the second string, which is this mode parameter, based on the second string, it will set the attribute of the data target to the corresponding model. So if the second string was added, the button will be set the data target attribute or property to this update recipe model, which is the ID of the actual model. And then it will trigger the button here. So, I mean, this is just a pretty smart practice to open the models. And I, learned it on a YouTube video, and I just want to show you how do I implement this. And yeah, just show you this. This is pretty cool. Okay, and now I think that's all with the front-end side. And let me go back to the back-end side. And this is the back-end server. And again, it locates inside the front-end folders. Yeah, it's many nested folders. Anyway, something very interesting when I learned is that, so not only you wrote this recipe interface in the front end, but also you have to write this recipe dot Java class again in the Spring Boot. And yeah, I just needed it will be mapped. So the front end interface is like a interface helping with the front end stuff, but the back end recipe class actually maps to the database. And here you can compare them together. They're really the same stuff. They have all of the same properties or arguments. So I just found it very interesting, when I wrote this code. And so like back to what I was talking about. So you also need to have this recipe.java in the Spring Boot in the server side. And beside that, there are several things: recipe repository, recipe service, recipe controller, and I was running this recipe application. But what actually defines the app are these files. And you can see that this recipe controller is the thing that defines all of the roads. Like, you can just see here, and they're just self-explanatory even if you don't know about Spring Boot. So, the find route, what does it do? It just gives you all of the recipes, right? And it is a thing that get called from here. So I just found, the front end and back end, like the Angular code and Spring Boot code, they are kind of symmetrical. Yeah, so I just found it very interesting. And anyway, this is the controller where you actually define the roles. And you see that in the controller, there's also a recipe service, which is defined here. And the recipe service, define, it's like a, well, how do I describe this? It's, yeah, basically it defines all of the, it's like the middle layer between the controller and Java. It defines all the available functions that you can call. So the controller defines all of the roles, and the service defines all of the functions. And what does a repo do? This is also something interesting that I learned. That, so you see that so inside the functions, I need the help of recipe repo to run the function to actually give me the real result. But you might be surprised that we're confused that why is there only delete recipe by ID function defined here, and well, there's actually another fund by ID, but why there are actually just two fund by ID defined here, and they're just an interface without any real statement. So how does it know which like how does it actually connect to the database and call the SQL commands? And one thing interesting is that this JPARepository can actually automatically generate those SQL statements or queries based on the name of your function name. So saying that the name of this function is update recipe, and the recipe is a class name here. It's a class, right? And update is like a action. So this interface JPARepository just knows this name, and it will automatically generate the corresponding SQL statements for you. So there's no way you actually write those stuff. And yeah, that's also kind of I was stunned when I built this. And I guess that's pretty much it. That's pretty much the overview that I want to talk about. And yeah, and one last thing I want to say is that, so you might notice that, so I mean, beside all of these tags I have whenever I created this recipes, I also there's a image being uploaded every time from my local file that I use as the cover image, and this is also something interesting that I learned. So the way you do it, it's not there's not an easy way to do it, and the actual you have to create an image folder into your server side, like residing into your server folder, and let me just show you this. And if I click on this image, you will find that there are 3 images here. If I remove them, right? If I remove them and refresh this app, the image is gone. But you might be wondering that the image, they were actually in another folder, that is this image folder, and this image folder is not this one. So what's going on? And what goes on is that whenever I uploaded an image, so from here, whenever I insert a recipe, I have to also, like in the meantime, I will also call this add image function. And what it does is that it will call this add image road. So every time I insert a recipe, these two rows will be like they both of them will be called. And what does this one do is, it just adds the recipe into the database with, pure string where numbers, but like text, I mean. And what this rows do is that it will, you can, see here that it will create an image post with, its original image name, and then it will put the image. So the helper function, this thing, the helper function is here. So again, what this function does is it will actually saves your image, the image you upload from, whatever it is, to this image folder that reside in your project, in your project directory. And the next time, so after, saving this image into your project directory, in the front end, the image will be showed because of this line. So this is, the parent folder, and this server images dot slash recipe dot image is the name of the recipe. So these will point to the image name from this parents folder. And so yeah, basically one thing I learned is that there's no way to, just easily upload an image, and you can't just save an image into the database, right? So what you have to do is that you have to copy, like duplicate your image and store it in a folder. But you could put the image name, like the name of the image, into your database. And the time you want to show it, you have to, fetch the image based on the image name stored in your database, and to fetch your actual image. I just found this logic very interesting. Okay, I guess that's all I want to talk about. And this is pretty complicated stuff. And to be honest, there are a lot of stuff going on, and I don't understand all of them. And also there are, also a lot of settings you have to work with, especially in the backend side, well, also in the frontend side. But anyway, there's a lot of settings. So yeah, for sure, Angular with Spring Boot is a challenge for me. And I managed to, make this app work with the help from Google, Stack Overflow, and also some, YouTube videos. So yeah, it's pretty interesting and also challenging. And I hope you enjoy this. Thank you.